My name is Grace Thompson, and if you had met me 20 years ago, you would have said I had the perfect life. A loving husband, two beautiful children, a house full of laughter, and dreams that felt real. But sometimes, the things that look whole from the outside are already breaking inside. Michael, my husband, was the kind of man everyone respected. Calm, soft-spoken, and always helping others. He worked at a small construction company in Manchester, and no matter how tired he was, he would always bring me flowers on Fridays. I can still remember that smell of fresh tulips mixed with his cologne when he walked through the door. Our son, Ethan, was born on a rainy morning in April. He was loud, stubborn, but had eyes full of light. Our daughter, Lily, came 2 years later, soft-spoken, curious, and always holding her brother's hand like she was protecting him. We weren't rich. We didn't have much, but we had us. And that used to be enough. But life, it doesn't stay still. It tests you. It breaks you quietly before you even realize it's happening. Michael started getting sick. It began with fatigue, some chest pain, and coughs that wouldn't go away. We thought it was stress. It wasn't. The day the doctor said, stage 3 lung cancer, I felt my knees give out. I remember standing outside the hospital room, holding my purse, and not knowing what to do with my hands. Ethan was only 16. Lily was 14. I didn't know how to tell them. When I finally did, Ethan screamed, "No! You're lying!" and ran out of the house. Lily just sat there quietly, her eyes wide and wet, like she couldn't understand what death meant. Michael tried to stay strong for us. He smiled through pain, joked with the kids, even went to Ethan's football game just weeks before he couldn't walk anymore. He told me, "Grace, when I'm gone, promise me you'll keep them together." I nodded. But inside, I knew I couldn't make that promise. I wasn't sure I had the strength. The night he passed away, the whole world went silent. The house that once echoed with laughter suddenly became too big, too cold. I remember sitting on the floor of our living room, the light from the fireplace dancing on the walls, holding his wedding ring in my hand. It was still warm. For weeks after his funeral, I didn't sleep properly. I'd wake up thinking I heard his voice calling my name. Sometimes I'd find myself setting the dinner table for 4 again, out of habit, out of hope. Ethan changed the most. He started skipping school. He wouldn't talk to me, just locked himself in his room, music blasting so loud that I couldn't think. I found cigarettes in his jacket one day, and later, pills. I wanted to scream, to shake him, to tell him he was breaking my heart. But every time I opened my mouth, the words turned into tears. Lily tried to hold the pieces together. She was only 15, but she cooked dinner, cleaned, and even helped me pay bills online. Sometimes, at night, I'd find her sitting in Michael's chair, whispering, "Dad, please come back. Ethan's not okay." I tried everything, working double shifts at the nursing home, taking small sewing jobs at night, just to keep us afloat. We barely made it through the first winter. Bills stacked on the kitchen counter like reminders that life doesn't stop for grief. One night, Ethan didn't come home. I called every friend he had, every number I could find. It was 3 a.m. when the phone finally rang. It was the police. They had found him unconscious near a bar downtown, drunk, angry, broken. That night, something in me cracked. I looked at his bruised face in that hospital bed and realized, I was losing my son, just like I'd lost my husband. Different ways, same pain. When we got home, I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just sat beside him and said, "Ethan, I don't have anyone left but you and your sister. Please don't make me bury you too." He didn't respond. He just turned his head away. Days turned into months. Ethan drifted further. Lily grew quieter. And I learned to live in silence. Every morning, I'd open the curtains, make coffee, and whisper, "One more day, Grace, just one more day." I didn't know what I was surviving for. But I knew I couldn't give up. Not yet. Because somewhere, deep down, I still believed that one day, my children would understand what I had sacrificed for them. It's strange how life pushes you into choices you never thought you'd make. After Michael's death, Manchester didn't feel like home anymore. Every street, every sound, every smell, it reminded me of him. The hospital, his favorite cafe, even the park where we used to take the kids, everything whispered his name. Bills were piling up, and the house was slipping away from me. I remember sitting at the kitchen table one morning, staring at the final notice from the bank. It said, foreclosure. A single word that meant the walls around me, the same walls that had seen my children grow, were no longer mine. That's when I called my cousin Linda. She had moved to the US, years ago, somewhere near Portland, Oregon. She said, Grace, come here. Start fresh. You can stay with me until you find your footing. I thought about it for days. Ethan didn't want to hear about it. He shouted, I'm not leaving my friends. You can go if you want. And Lily, sweet Lily, just held my hand and said, Mom, maybe a new place will help us all heal. So, I sold whatever I could. Michael's tools, old furniture, even my wedding dress. It felt like selling pieces of my own soul. But I needed the money. We packed 3 suitcases, that's all that was left of our life in England, and took the flight to the US. The moment I stepped off that plane, I felt hollow. Like I'd left more than a country behind, I'd left myself. Linda welcomed us warmly. She had a small house near the woods, peaceful, quiet, and nothing like the noisy streets of Manchester. For a few weeks, it almost felt like we could breathe again. But grief doesn't disappear just because you change your address. It travels with you, hiding in your luggage. Ethan hated everything. The school, the people, the accent. He'd mock them, fight with classmates, and spend nights wandering outside. I was working at a local diner, long shifts, barely sleeping, and every time I came home, I found him angrier than before. One evening, Linda pulled me aside and said, Grace, I think Ethan needs help. Maybe counseling. But I knew what she really meant. He was becoming a problem. And deep down, I didn't blame her for thinking that. A few weeks later, I found out Ethan had stolen money from Linda's purse. When I confronted him, he screamed, You care more about everyone else than me. And then he slammed the door so hard that the glass cracked. I just stood there. I didn't chase him. I didn't cry. I just whispered, Please, God, don't take him away from me too. That night, he didn't come back. The police found him 2 towns over, drunk again, with some older boys. They called it underage disturbance. I called it heartbreak. When I went to pick him up, he looked at me and said, Why did you bring us here? Everything was better before Dad died. And I couldn't argue. Because maybe he was right. Maybe I had ruined everything by trying to fix it. Lily was changing too. She was quiet, distant, always reading, always writing in her notebook. I once asked her what she wrote about, and she said, About how people pretend to move on when they're still broken. Those words cut deeper than anything else. Months passed. We moved into a small rented apartment to give Linda her space. The walls were thin, the carpet smelled old, and the heater made strange noises, but it was ours. I took a job at a retirement home nearby. Every day, I'd take care of old souls with stories heavier than mine. And sometimes, one of them would grab my hand and whisper, You're a kind one, love, don't give up yet. I'd smile and nod, but inside I felt empty. Ethan barely spoke to me anymore. Sometimes, I'd see him standing outside at night, staring at the woods behind our building. He'd stay there for hours, motionless. When I asked what he was doing, he'd just say, Listening. Listening to what? He never answered. Then, one night, around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of the back door creaking. Ethan was gone. His shoes were missing, and his phone was still on the couch. I ran outside, barefoot, heart pounding. The cold air cut through my lungs. I called his name again and again. Ethan, Ethan. No answer. I searched for hours. The police came. They said, maybe he went to a friend's place. But I knew my son. Something was wrong. The next morning, they found him. Not far from the woods, sitting by the riverbank. He was safe, physically. But when I saw his face, it was pale, distant, almost hollow. He didn't speak for 2 days after that. When he finally did, he said just one sentence. Mom, I saw Dad in the woods. I froze. I wanted to tell him it was just a dream, but the way he said it, so calm, so sure, made me question everything. That night, when the lights were out and Lily was asleep, I sat by the window and whispered, Michael, if you're still here, please, help me. I can't do this alone anymore. The wind outside answered, soft, slow, like a sigh. And for the first time, I didn't know if I was imagining things, or if he really heard me. It's strange how silence can feel louder than any scream. After that night by the river, Ethan changed. Not in the way teenagers usually do. No rebellion, no yelling, just silence. He'd stare out the window for hours, watching the woods behind our apartment. At first, I thought it was guilt. Maybe he was ashamed of what happened. But then, he started talking to someone who wasn't there. One afternoon, I came home early from work. Lily was doing her homework, quiet as always. And from Ethan's room, I heard him whispering. His voice was low, almost respectful. Like he was talking to someone older, someone he trusted. I stood outside his door and listened. He said, "I know, Dad. I'll protect her. I promise." My breath caught. I pushed open the door slowly. He was sitting on the floor, facing the window, eyes fixed on the dark line of trees outside. "Ethan," I said softly, "who are you talking to?" He turned to me, and his face was calm, too calm. "You wouldn't understand, Mom. He's helping me." I felt my heart pound. "Who's helping you?" He smiled faintly. "Dad." I tried to smile back. "Sweetheart, your dad is." "I know what you're going to say," he interrupted. "But he's not gone. He's still with us. He said he never left." That night, I didn't sleep. I kept replaying his words in my head. Was this grief, trauma, or something else? The next morning, I called a local counselor, Drive Reynolds. He agreed to meet Ethan. After their session, he told me, "Grace, your son is holding on to an emotional anchor. He needs closure." Closure. A word that sounds simple, but means tearing yourself open. I tried. I really did. We visited the church, we lit candles for Michael, we even went to the river where we'd scattered his ashes. But Ethan seemed distant, like he was listening to something none of us could hear. A week later, I came home to find his room freezing cold. The window was open, curtains moving like slow breaths. On the floor, there was a small notebook. Inside, he had written the same sentence over and over. "He's waiting for us in the woods." I asked him about it that night, and he said quietly, "Mom, he wants us to come home." I told him, "Ethan, this is our home now." He looked at me with those same pale eyes and said, "No, Mom, you forgot what home feels like." I felt something inside me break. The days grew shorter, the nights colder. Even Lily began to feel it, the strange tension that hung around our small apartment. She'd wake up crying, saying she heard footsteps outside her window. Once, she said she saw a shadow, tall, still, with eyes that glowed faintly in the dark. I told myself it was imagination. Kids dream. But one night, when I came home late from work, I saw it too. At first, I thought it was a person, standing near the tree line, behind the parking lot. But when I blinked, it was gone. That night, I locked every door and window. Still, at 3 a.m., I heard a knock. 3 slow knocks. On the back door. I froze. I wanted to move, to speak, but my body wouldn't listen. The knocks came again, louder this time. I whispered, "Ethan," but his room was empty. I grabbed the flashlight and walked slowly toward the kitchen. The sound came once more. Knock, knock, knock. When I finally opened the curtain, there was no one there. Just the dark forest and the reflection of my own terrified face. I checked Ethan's room again, empty. Lily was still asleep, clutching her blanket. My heart was racing as I stepped outside. The air was heavy, still. I could smell the wet earth, the pine, the faint scent of something burning. And then I saw footprints, small, bare footprints, leading from our back door into the woods. I followed them. Every step I took, the world grew quieter. Even the wind stopped. When I reached the edge of the woods, I saw Ethan standing there, facing the trees. He didn't turn around. "Ethan," I called, my voice breaking. He didn't move. I took another step closer. And then I heard it. A whisper. Soft, deep, almost gentle. Like someone breathing right behind me. It said, "Grace." I turned around. No one was there. But when I looked back at Ethan, he was gone. Just gone. I ran deeper into the woods, calling his name again and again until my voice gave out. The only answer was the echo of my own cries. After what felt like hours, I found him, sitting on the ground, eyes closed, whispering something. I knelt beside him, shaking him gently. "Ethan, wake up." He opened his eyes slowly and looked straight at me. And then he said something that chilled my blood. "Mom," he says, "it's your turn now." After that night in the woods, something in the house changed. Not just the air, it was the silence. It felt heavier, like the walls were listening. Ethan stopped going to school. He'd wake up at dawn, sit by the window, and just wait. For what? I never knew. Every time I asked, he'd just smile and say, "You'll see soon, Mom. He's almost ready." Almost ready for what? Lily became quiet too, afraid to sleep in her own room. She started drawing strange pictures. A tall man, standing in the trees. Sometimes she'd draw our house, but with the windows blacked out. I asked her once, "Why did you color the windows dark, sweetheart?" And she said, "So he can't see us when he comes." Those words. They stayed with me. I tried to be strong, tried to act normal. Cooked breakfast, went to work, came home, cleaned, prayed. But every time I looked at Ethan, I could feel it, that something was watching through him. One night, I found him in the basement, sitting on the cold floor. The air smelled of damp and earth. Candles were lit in a small circle around him. He was whispering again. "Ethan," I said softly. He didn't move. "Sweetheart, please, talk to me." Then he turned his head slowly. And for a moment, his eyes didn't look like his own. They were dark, empty, like looking into a well with no bottom. He said quietly, "Mom, he wants to talk to you now." My heart stopped. "What are you talking about?" He smiled, but it wasn't his smile. "You already know, don't you?" I backed away slowly. "Ethan, please, stop this. You're scaring me." He looked down at the candles. Then, with a calmness that didn't belong to a child, he said, "He says you promised." I froze. Promised what? No answer. He just blew out the candles, and everything went dark. The next morning, he acted like nothing happened. He even joked with Lily at breakfast. But his eyes, they were different. Colder. Older. That night, I dreamt of Michael for the first time in months. He was standing at the river again, the one behind our old house in Boston. He looked at me with that same soft smile he always had. I called out to him, "Michael, please, come back." He said, "You let me go, Grace. Now it's your turn." I woke up crying. The bed sheets were damp with sweat. Outside, the wind was howling. And I could swear I heard my name in it. By morning, I decided we needed help. I called Pastor Neil, an old friend of Michael's. He came over that evening. A kind man, always calm. He sat with Ethan, asked a few questions. When Ethan left the room, Neil turned to me and said softly, "Grace, there's a presence in your home. Not a ghost, not exactly. But something that feeds on grief." He told me not to confront it directly. That these things grow stronger when we talk to them. But it was too late. That night, I found a note under my pillow. In Ethan's handwriting. It said, "Mom, he says you forgot your promise. Come to the woods. He'll remind you." I ran to his room, empty again. The back door was open. I grabbed my coat, flashlight, and ran out barefoot into the cold. The air was thick, fog curling around the trees like smoke. I kept calling, "Ethan, please, come home." My voice echoed, then faded into something else. A whisper. A man's whisper. "Grace." I froze. That voice. It was Michael's. I turned slowly. The beam of my flashlight shook in my hands. And there, in the distance, I saw a figure. Tall, still, familiar. "Michael," I whispered. The figure tilted its head. And I swear, I saw a faint smile. I took a step forward. Then another. Every part of me screaming to stop. But my heart pulling me closer. When I was close enough to see his face, I dropped the flashlight. It wasn't Michael. It looked like him. But the eyes were wrong. Too black. Too empty. And then it spoke, in his voice. "I kept my promise. Now keep yours." The ground seemed to shake. The trees swayed though there was no wind. I stumbled back, whispering, "No, you're not him. You're not real." But then I felt a hand on my shoulder. Warm. Heavy. And a voice behind me said, "I told you he never left." It was Ethan, standing there, smiling, tears in his eyes. He said, "Mom, you're home now." I looked around. The woods, the fog, the faint light flickering between the trees. And I realized, I couldn't see the house anymore. Just darkness. And the faint echo of my own voice. Calling from somewhere I couldn't reach. I didn't sleep that night. After what happened in the woods, my heart refused to rest. Every sound, every creak of the house felt alive. As if the walls themselves remembered what I had seen. Ethan wouldn't speak. He just sat in his room, drawing circles on the floor with chalk. Over and over again. When I tried to clean them, he'd scream. Not like a child. Like something ancient was being disturbed. Lily stopped talking completely. She would only whisper one word, again and again. Promise, promise. It echoed through the house like a broken lullaby. That morning, I found something in the attic. A box I hadn't opened in years. Inside were old photos. Me, Michael, the kids, and a small wooden charm, shaped like a tear. I remembered it instantly. The night Michael died, a woman had come to the hospital. I never saw her face clearly. She pressed this charm into my hand and said, "Say these words when you can't bear to lose him." And I did. I whispered them into the night. Not knowing they were never meant for love, but for binding. That was the promise. I ran my fingers over the charm now, feeling its cold edges. The wood pulsed faintly under my touch, like a slow heartbeat. Then, suddenly, a knock at the door. I froze. It was Pastor Neil again. He looked tired, pale. He said he'd been dreaming about Michael. That Michael was calling for me. He stepped inside, looked around, and whispered, "Grace, do you feel it?" I nodded. He walked to the living room and stopped. Right where the circles had been drawn. His voice shook. "This house isn't haunted by your husband, Grace. It's haunted by your grief." He turned to me, eyes wide. "When you made that promise, you called something. It wears Michael's face, but it isn't him." I sank to my knees. Tears burned my eyes. I didn't mean to. I just wanted him back. Neil placed a hand on my shoulder. "Then we must set him free. Tonight." He told me to gather everything that tied Michael to this world. His watch, his photograph, his wedding ring. And the charm. Always the charm. When night fell, we lit candles in the living room. Ethan watched silently from the stairs. Lily hid behind the sofa, trembling. Neil began to pray. Softly at first, then louder. The air grew heavy. The lights flickered. And then, a voice joined in. Michael's voice. "Grace." It came from everywhere and nowhere. From the walls, the air, the very ground beneath us. Neil kept praying, louder now. "Go in peace. You are not welcome here." But the voice only laughed. Low, mocking. "Peace. You asked for me, Grace. You begged for forever. Now I'm here." The candles blew out, all at once. The room plunged into darkness. I felt cold fingers brush my neck. Then his voice, right beside my ear. "You said you'd never let me go." I screamed. Neil shouted something. Latin words, sharp, desperate. The charm in my hand grew hot, burning. Smoke rose from it, curling into the shape of a face. Michael's face. He smiled sadly. And for a moment, just a moment, I saw him, truly him. "The man I loved." He whispered. "You have to let me go, Grace. This isn't me." And then, the smoke twisted, and he was gone. The charm cracked in half. Silence. Neil collapsed to the floor, gasping. The children sobbed quietly in the corner. I sat there in the dark, holding the broken charm, wondering if I'd freed him, or lost him again forever. Hours passed before anyone moved. When the first light of dawn crept through the curtains, Ethan came to me. He knelt beside me, took my hand, and whispered, "He's gone, Mom." I looked at my son. And for the first time in months, his eyes looked like his own again. Tears fell freely. I hugged him, holding on as tightly as I could. "I'm so sorry, baby," I whispered. "I just wanted us to be whole again." He smiled weakly. "We are, Mom. We just have to start over." And for the first time, I believed him. But then, from upstairs, a soft creak echoed. Lily's voice, faint, sleepy, called out, "Mom, he's standing in my room." When Lily called out, my heart stopped. The way she said it, calm, almost peaceful. Like she wasn't afraid at all. But I was. Every part of me was. I ran up the stairs, my feet heavy on the wood. The door to her room was half open. The morning light was pale, ghostly. And there, standing by her bed, was him. Or what looked like him. Michael. Same soft eyes. Same tired smile. But something was wrong. His shadow didn't move when he did. And when he turned to look at me, his eyes reflected nothing. Just emptiness. "Grace," he said softly. "Why are you crying? I'm home." For a moment, I almost believed him. I wanted to believe him so badly. But then I saw Lily. Her small hands clutching the blanket. Her lips trembling even though she smiled. I whispered, "Michael, please, you're not supposed to be here." He stepped closer. Each step made the room darker. As if he brought night with him. The air felt thick, like breathing through smoke. I told you, he murmured. You made a promise. And promises don't break. Behind him, the mirror cracked, silently, slowly, splitting his reflection into 100 fractured faces. Each one smiled at a different angle. Each one whispered, Grace. I screamed for Pastor Neil, but there was no answer. Ethan ran in instead. He froze when he saw Michael. Dad, he whispered. Michael smiled wider. Son, come here. Ethan's legs moved on their own. He didn't want to go. I could see it in his face. But something pulled him forward. Like a thread tugging his soul. I grabbed his arm. Don't. The air between us burned cold. And then, Michael's face changed. The warmth, the kindness, gone. His mouth twisted. His voice deepened. You can't save them, Grace. You gave them to me the moment you begged for me back. I fell to my knees. My body shook. Take me instead, I whispered. Please, just leave them. He leaned close, too close. And I felt the chill of death brush my cheek. You already belong to me. Then Lily screamed. The light bulbs shattered, one after another. And the room filled with darkness. I felt hands, not one pair, but many. Grabbing, pulling, whispering. Ethan shouted something. And suddenly, I heard a voice from downstairs. Neil, praying, shouting words I didn't understand. Latin, strong, burning through the dark. The hands loosened. Michael, or whatever he was, stepped back, snarling. His voice wasn't human anymore. She called me. She promised. You can't unmake what's done. Neil stormed into the room. His cross raised high, his voice trembling but firm. Leave this house. Leave this family. You were never love. You were loss. The walls groaned. The floor split beneath us. Wind howled from nowhere. And in the chaos, I saw Michael again. The real one. Just for a second, he looked at me with eyes full of tears. Grace, I'm sorry. Then he turned to the shadow that wore his face. And whispered, let them go. The thing screamed, a sound like metal tearing. The windows burst open. Light flooded in, blinding. And then, silence. When I opened my eyes, the room was empty. Lily was sobbing in my arms. Ethan was on the floor, shaking. Neil sat against the wall, pale as ash. The house was still. I looked around. Michael was gone. Completely gone. Neil whispered weakly, it's over, Grace, it's done. But I didn't believe him. Not fully. Because deep inside, something still hummed. A quiet rhythm, like a heartbeat. Coming from under the floorboards. I went still. Lily noticed. Mom, I forced a smile. It's nothing, baby. Go downstairs. But I knew. The charm had cracked, not shattered. Half of it was still there. Still glowing faintly in the dark. And I knew what it meant. The promise wasn't broken. It was waiting. 3 days passed. 3 days since the light swallowed Michael's ghost. The house looked normal again. But normal doesn't mean peace. It just means the storm went underground. Ethan stopped talking much. He just sat near the window, sketching. Every time I asked what he was drawing, he said, I don't know yet. Lily slept with me now. Sometimes she'd wake in the middle of the night and whisper, Mom, someone's humming downstairs. I'd tell her it was just the pipes, or the wind. But I knew it wasn't. Because I heard it too. A soft hum. Low. Rhythmic. Almost like a heartbeat through the walls. I tried ignoring it. I tried pretending it wasn't there. But at night, when everything was silent, I could feel it, vibrating through the bed. Through my hands. Through my veins. And sometimes, it felt like it was coming from me. Neil stopped visiting. He said I needed rest. He said, faith is strongest when the world goes quiet. But the world wasn't quiet. The house was breathing. And I could feel eyes following me when I walked through the hallway. The fourth night, it began. I was brushing my hair in front of the mirror. The air behind me turned heavy. The light dimmed just slightly, enough for my heart to notice. Then a whisper, so faint I almost thought it was my own thought. Grace. I froze. The brush slipped from my hand. The voice came again, soft, broken, and close. Grace, do you remember what you promised me? I turned slowly. Nothing. Just the empty room. But the whisper didn't stop. It was inside now, under my skin. Behind my heartbeat. Don't be afraid. I never left. I've always been here. You wore my love. You carry it still. I pressed my hands to my ears, shaking my head. No, no, you're gone. But the voice only laughed. A gentle, heartbreaking laugh. Gone. I'm in every breath you take. I'm the warmth in your chest. The ache when you remember me. I'm you now. I fell to the floor, trembling. Tears came without warning. I whispered, why? Why can't you let me go? The air shimmered, and for the briefest moment, the mirror showed me not my reflection, but his. Michael's eyes. Michael's smile. But his skin, it looked cracked, hollow. Like porcelain trying to hide rot. He said softly, you prayed for forever, and forever listened. I screamed, but no sound came out. The mirror splintered from the inside. Blood, or something like it, ran down the glass. I stumbled back, and then, silence again. Only my own ragged breathing filled the room. But when I looked down at my arm, there it was. A faint, pulsing mark. Shaped like the charm we buried. It was glowing, under my skin. I tried rubbing it away. But the light only spread, up my wrist, to my shoulder, to my chest. My heart was racing. And then, I heard it again. That same humming. But this time, I realized where it was coming from. Inside me. The hum wasn't the house. It was me. I ran to the sink, splashed water on my face, looked into the mirror again. And there, behind my reflection, he was smiling. Not the Michael the first loved. Not the man who promised me a life. But something that wore his memory like a mask. He whispered, don't run. You called me once. And I came. Now, it's your turn. The lights flickered. My knees buckled. Everything went dark. When I woke up, the sun was rising. Lily was still asleep beside me. Ethan was gone. And carved into the wooden floor beside the bed, fresh and deep, were 4 words. He is with me. The morning light touched the curtains, soft, cold, almost metallic. I opened my eyes, and for a moment, I forgot where I was. Then I saw it. The carving on the floor. He is with me. Ethan's bed was empty. His sketchbook was open, the pencil still warm between the pages. I whispered his name. No answer. I checked every room, the kitchen, the basement, the porch. But he was gone. Only his shoes were missing, and the door was slightly ajar. Ethan. My voice cracked in the silence. The house seemed to breathe back. Every wooden creak sounded like a reply. Mocking me, repeating his name. Ethan. 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 Panic settled in my chest like a storm. I ran outside. The morning fog was heavy, clinging to my hair. The grass wet beneath my feet. I called again, louder this time. No answer. Just the sound of crows circling the woods behind the house. And then I saw it. A piece of Ethan's drawing paper, stuck on a thorn branch. It had a sketch of our house. But this time, the windows were glowing, red, not yellow. And in one window, a figure stood. A woman, with light coming from her chest. I froze. Because the figure was me. My hands trembled as I picked up the page. It felt warm, as if the ink was still alive. Something deep inside me whispered. He's not lost. He's been taken where you kept your pain. I turned toward the house again. The windows stared back like open eyes. The hum, the same hum, began to rise again. This time, louder, rhythmic. It pulsed with my heartbeat. I walked inside. Every step echoed too loud, like the floor remembered every sin I'd stepped over. The air smelled like burnt candles and wet soil. The walls had changed, darker, older. It was as if the house aged overnight. Then, I heard it. A small, distant cry. A boy's voice. Mom. I spun around. Ethan. But the sound came from beneath. The basement. The door stood slightly open. A faint red light seeping through the cracks. I hadn't opened that door in months. Since the day Michael died. My body didn't want to move. But my heart, it didn't listen. I went down the stairs, slowly, one step at a time. The hum grew louder. The red light pulsed. And at the bottom, the air felt alive. Thick, electric, almost breathing. Ethan was standing there, in front of Michael's old armchair. His eyes were blank. In his hands, he held the broken charm, the one we buried. It was glowing again. Ethan, I whispered. He didn't move. He just looked up at me. And in a voice that wasn't his. He said, he's not gone, Mom. He's waiting. I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. No, baby, give it to me. But Ethan smiled, that same crooked, haunting smile Michael had. You said love never dies. You were right. Then he pressed the charm against his chest. The red light burst, filling the room like fire. I screamed his name, running forward. But something invisible pulled me back. Like the air itself had turned into hands. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The light swallowed everything. And for a brief second, I saw them both. Michael, holding Ethan's hand. Standing in the corner, where the light met the dark. His eyes looked at me, soft, almost human again. Grace, he whispered, you can't save him from what you called. And then, the light vanished. Silence. Only my heartbeat echoed. I fell to the ground. The chair was empty. Ethan was gone. Only the charm remained. Cracked, cold, and still glowing faintly. I picked it up, pressed it to my heart, and whispered, take me instead. But nothing happened. Just quiet. A cruel, endless quiet. The house was still, but in the reflection of the window, I saw something. A faint outline behind me. A child's shadow. Smiling. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every wall of this house echoed Ethan's voice. Soft, distant, like a dream I could almost touch but never reach. When I closed my eyes, I saw him standing by the basement door. That same faint red glow seeping through his skin. And Michael's voice. It whispered through the cracks in the floorboards. You brought him back to me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to break every wall in this cursed house. But I couldn't. Because somewhere, deep down, I knew. I had done this. I had kept every pain, every regret, every tear, inside these walls. And pain, when you feed it too long, becomes alive. By morning, the fog outside had thickened. The world felt smaller. The air, heavier. I made myself a cup of coffee, but it tasted like rust. Even the clock refused to tick. I walked toward Ethan's room again. His toys were still scattered across the floor. The little train track we built together stopped halfway through the loop. Like even it gave up on finishing the journey. Then I noticed the drawing on his desk, one I hadn't seen before. It showed a woman standing in a field. And above her, a shadow in the shape of wings. Below it, in shaky handwriting, it said, she gave her heart so I could breathe. My breath caught. My knees gave way. I fell to the floor, clutching the paper, whispering his name again and again. Ethan, baby, please come back. And then, a voice behind me said, I never left, Mom. I turned around. He was there, standing near the window, his skin pale, eyes too dark, too empty. But it was him. I ran to him, but as I got closer, I realized something. The sunlight didn't touch him. It passed through him. Ethan, he smiled softly. Don't cry, Mom. I'm fine now. Dad's here. The mention of Michael's name hit me like a knife. I looked toward the shadow behind Ethan. And yes, it was him. Michael. But not the man I remembered. Something else wearing his face. Grace, he said, you begged for peace. This is peace. You, me, and our boy, forever. I shook my head. No, not like this. He's just a child. He was. Michael interrupted. You turned him into memory. Memory into prayer. Prayer into power. Now he's more than that. He's ours again. My body trembled. Tears streamed down my face. You can't keep him here, I cried. He deserves to live. Michael smiled faintly. Then give him life. The only way left. And at that moment, the charm in my hand began to glow again. The same faint red light. But now, it pulsed with both their heartbeats. Michael stepped closer, whispering. One life must end, for one to begin. I looked at Ethan, his small, trembling face. And I knew what he meant. Mom, Ethan whispered, I'm tired of the dark. Something inside me broke. I took his hands in mine. They were warm, but fading. I whispered, then take my light, baby. And the charm flared, so bright that the whole room filled with a golden red fire. Everything trembled. Walls cracked. Air turned heavy. And then, silence. When I opened my eyes, I was standing in the field from Ethan's drawing. The same golden light. The same wind. And far away, I saw him. Running, laughing, free. I wanted to call out, but my voice wouldn't come. My hands were fading. My body felt lighter, almost transparent. And then I understood. I had given him my life. My son was alive, but I was not. I smiled through the tears. Because for the first time in years, he was free. He could breathe again. And that was enough. Behind me, I heard Michael's voice, softer now, almost kind. You always wanted to save him. Now you have. I turned once more, saw the house in the distance, and whispered, goodbye. The wind carried my words. And everything dissolved into light. When I opened my eyes, the world was quiet. No pain, no sound, just warmth. The air shimmered like morning sunlight on water. I wasn't in my house anymore. No walls, no darkness, just endless light. For a moment, I thought, This is peace. Then, from the distance, I heard laughter, a sound I knew better than my own heartbeat. It was Ethan. He was running through a field of tall grass, barefoot, free. The wind carried his joy across the sky. I wanted to run to him. To hold him one last time. But something held me still. Not fear, not pain, just peace. And then I realized, I couldn't move because I didn't need to. He didn't need me to hold his hand anymore. He was alive, and I had finally let him go. I closed my eyes and whispered to the wind. Be happy, my boy. That's all I ever wanted. Dash dash dash. Far away, in the real world, Ethan woke up. Doctors rushed to his side, calling his name. The machines that had been silent for years suddenly came alive. He gasped, air filling his lungs for the first time since the accident. The nurse ran out to call Drive. Harris. His heart rate steady. He's breathing. But when they turned, the chair beside him was empty. Grace wasn't there. Only the red charm lay on the floor, cracked down the middle, glowing faintly for one last time before fading into dust. Dash dash dash. 2 days later, Ethan walked out of the hospital. He held the broken charm tightly in his hand. The world outside looked brighter, but emptier. He went home. The house was silent, filled with sunlight that somehow felt softer. On the kitchen table lay a note, written in Grace's delicate handwriting. Greater than, you never have to knock again. The door will always be open. Even if I'm not there to answer it. Ethan's tears fell onto the paper. He sat in her chair, the same one she used to wait in. And whispered, I'm sorry, Mom. I finally understand. Dash dash dash. Years passed. Ethan grew older. He had a family of his own, a wife, a daughter named Grace Jr. And sometimes, when the house grew quiet, he swore he could still feel her presence. A gentle hand on his shoulder. A whisper in his ear. You're doing fine, my boy. I'm proud of you. Dash dash dash. One evening, his daughter came running to him. Dad, I drew something for Grandma. She handed him a piece of paper. It showed a woman standing in sunlight. A small boy holding her hand. And above them, wings made of light. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. He smiled softly, kissed his daughter's head, and whispered, she's watching, sweetheart. Always has been. Dash dash dash. And in that quiet home, where pain once lived and sorrow once echoed, there was only peace now. A peace that came from love. The kind of love that doesn't die. It only changes form, and lights the way for those who remain.